get some, learn about how to practice basic mindfulness meditation on one hand, and then also look at anger, because it's a big problem for many of us, getting angry at ourselves or at other people. And then how to, understand our own, frustration, irritation, anger better. And then how to use meditation on metta, or loving kindness, as an antidote to our own anger. And also helps reduce the anger of others when we have loving kindness. So that's the main topic for the 3 sessions, today and tomorrow. So the strategy I thought to start with, try to get a little experience of each of these 3 things: mindfulness meditation, analyzing anger, looking at anger, and then applying loving kindness meditation as a sort of remedy for that. So today, in this evening, this session, I'll just briefly describe how to do each of those 3 things, and we'll practice together. And then tomorrow we'll go more deeply into each of the 3, and especially, when you get some experience trying to practice each of those a little bit, then you come up with questions, right? You have doubts about, well, how do you deal with this, or how do you deal with that? So then tomorrow we'll spend more time, discussing your different questions and doubts, and then learning more about how to do each of those 3 practices. Okay? So, so now we begin with practicing basic mindfulness meditation. So I'll give some basic explanation what to do, and then we'll meditate together for 10 or 15 minutes. Okay? So in meditation, basically any meditation session, we can say there's about basically 4 parts to the meditation session. So the first part is the posture, how we're sitting. Then the second part is our motivation. Why our intention? Why are we doing this activity at all? So getting some clarity about why am I doing this, and making sure that we have a positive reason for meditating. And then it's not just thoughtless, or not just for some kind of distorted reason, but we have a positive reason for what we're doing. Then the third part is the actual body of the meditation session, the actual practice. And then the last part at the end is dedication. Meaning like we think whatever, we rejoice basically in the positive activity we've done, and we think whatever, positive energy, whatever merit I've created, then by the force of that, may this and this and this come to be in the future, right? So we sort of direct whatever positive energy we've generated, we direct it towards something good happening in the future for ourselves and for others. So it's like praying. Okay, so there's these four parts to the meditation session: the posture, a motivation, the actual meditation, and then the dedication at the end. So the posture, first of all, usually it's best if we can sit in a cross-legged posture on the floor, like all of you are. You can sit, if you practice yoga and you're very flexible, you can sit in full lotus posture, with the right foot up on the left thigh, the left foot up on the right thigh, but for most of us it's very difficult. So if you, second best is half lotus, where we have one leg up. Like, for me that's fairly comfortable. Have one leg up and one leg down. The third, which is also fine, is just regular cross-legged posture with both your feet tucked under, like we usually sit when we're sitting on the floor. And then if you're sitting on a chair, having the legs just kind of parallel, just sit straight down. So the main point of the posture is, I'll go through about 8 different points of the posture, different parts of the body to hold in different ways. But it's helpful to know that the reason for this description of how to sit is so that while we're sitting and meditating, we don't have to pay attention to what's going on with our body. Right? That our body can just be comfortable and still, and we're not like falling over one way or the other, and we're not getting aches and pains, but rather our body is stable, in a position that it's stable, and it can rest without us having to pay attention to it and adjust and shift and move, so that we can pay attention to our mind, right? Because when we're meditating, we're looking at what's going on in our mind. So if we're constantly distracted by what's going on with our body, then it's difficult to meditate well. So that's the main purpose of the meditation, right? So if we're sitting on the floor, sitting cross-legged, it's quite a low, sort of stable position, right? So the first is, just the legs. Then the second is the torso. So we don't want to be slouching, right? It makes us feel lethargic, not comfortable. So we want to be sitting up straight, but also we don't want to be rigid, like sitting very rigid and like stiff. So we want to be relaxed but straight. So to do that, it helps to find where your torso is balanced, right? You imagine there's a straight line from the crown of your head down to the very base of your spine. And the base of your spine, you want, it usually helps to have the back of your seat raised a little bit, which is why we have these red cushions on top of the other ones. Right? So our buttocks are a little raised above our knees, just a little bit. And then it helps to have under the base of your spine like another something, cushion or rolled up towel or something, so that the base of your spine is making contact with your cushion, right? Instead of just floating in there. So you can imagine there's like a golden thread hanging from the sky, and it's hooked here to the top of our crown, and then our body is hanging straight down from it. Another way to imagine is that like our spine is like a stack of coins, and it's just straight from our cushion. It's just in a straight stack up. So we don't want to be falling to the left or the right, or falling forward or back. So it can help to rock back and forth, or rock left and right, and feel where you're balanced and centered, right? So there's the legs, and then the torso, straight and centered, but relaxed. Then the shoulders, broad and open, so you can breathe very freely. Just let your shoulders hang down naturally. And then the hands, there are different ways to put the hands, different mudras, but the best for meditation is called the mudra of meditative equipoise, where the right hand is held in the left on the bottom, right on top, and then the thumbs touching, like in a triangle, like this. And then resting in your lap, just in front of your navel. Right? That doesn't have to be against your stomach, it can be a little out. That's considered the best position. So many of these aspects of the posture, they might feel a little uncomfortable at first because we're not used to them. With time, if you practice again and again, gradually it becomes more and more comfortable. But you can also adjust, like if your hands are very uncomfortable like this, you can try putting, just on your legs like this, or one hand here, like that. I'll just describe what's considered the best, and then you can kind of adjust to your own needs. So there's the legs, the torso up straight, the shoulders broad and open, hands resting in the lap, right hand on top of left. So that's 4 points. Then the 5th is the head. So we want to tilt the head slightly forward. You can imagine, you can tuck your chin in just a little bit, and so that we elongate the back of the neck slightly. Right. So again, we don't want the head falling back or falling forward, but it helps to have a kind of stable position to slightly tuck the chin in and elongate the back of the neck. So we don't want the head not tucked like extremely like this, right? Just a little bit. So this helps. That's the 5th, and this helps with the 6th. So the 6th point is to have the eyes. So we want to direct our gaze at about a 45-degree angle down towards the floor, and sort of relax the eyes so that they're half closed, but they're half open, right? So again, the purpose of this is that if we have our eyes fully closed, then especially if we're in a quiet place in the evening and we're tired, then we easily just fall asleep instead of meditating. We become drowsy. So to prevent that, we leave the eyes half open. So we let some light in, and there's some visual appearance, and it helps the mind be a little bit more fresh and clear, and not become drowsy. But then if we keep the eyes fully open and look ahead, then we easily become distracted with what we see around us. And then it stirs up a lot of thoughts, a lot of mental chatter. So to reduce that, we keep the gaze down, and sort of relax the eyes and let them be half closed. And then another thing we don't want to do is look at anything, right? So again, meditation is something we're doing with the mind. We're looking at what's going on in our mind. We're looking at things with our mental consciousness as opposed to our visual consciousness, our eye consciousness. So with our eyes, instead of looking at a point on the floor and trying to fix on that, rather it's better to withdraw your gaze, withdraw the focus of your sight pull it back a little bit, so it's kind of between you and the floor or the table in front of you. And then let your gaze just rest unfocused. So it's best if everything just becomes like peripheral vision, right? You're not looking at any point in particular, you're just kind of, have your eyes half open and letting your focus is sort of, visual focus is kind of pulled back, and then you sort of just let visual things appear, you know, casting your gaze at a 45-degree angle down, and then let things appear, that's no problem, but we're not giving our attention to anything or looking specifically at any point. Yeah, so again, legs crossed, the torso straight, the shoulders open, hands in the lap is 4, then the head slightly tilted forward is 5, the gaze at a 45-degree angle down, eyes half closed, 6. So then 7 is our mouth and our teeth just resting in a natural position. Generally, when we're meditating, we breathe through the nose. Of course, if your nose is blocked, you can breathe through your mouth. Yeah, but the teeth and mouth, sometimes we have a lot of tension, tightness in the jaw or in muscles of the face. Relax those. Yeah, so the 7th is just let the teeth and mouth rest. Teeth and lips, mouth rest in a natural position. And then the 8th is the tongue. Right, so the tip of the tongue, usually it's recommended to keep, just press gently against the roof of your mouth, just behind your front teeth. So just behind your front teeth there's a gum, your gums. So it's recommended to keep the tip of your tongue just touching, pressing gently against your gums. So this helps to prevent the mouth from drying out. Yeah, so those are the 8 points. So then once you if you're beginning a meditation session, you look at those, briefly look at each of those points. How are my legs? Is my back straight? My torso erect? My shoulders broad and open? Hands resting in the lap? Right hand on top of the left? The tips of the thumbs touching? Head slightly tucked? The chin slightly tucked in? And then your eyes, the gaze of your eyes fall down, 45-degree angle. And then the teeth and lips in natural position, tip of the tongue touching the roof of the mouth. So once you go through the 8 points, then it's also good just to briefly scan through your body, which means briefly bring your attention to the top of your body, which is the crown of our head, and just check that there's no tension or heaviness or darkness, feeling of darkness or tightness there. And if you do perceive such kind of negative feelings, then as you inhale, imagine inhaling, bringing in very fresh, rejuvenating, like white light energy, and that comes to that part of your body. And as you exhale, and releases any tension or tightness or stress, clears away any heaviness or darkness. And then as you exhale, imagine any such heaviness, darkness, tightness flowing out with your breath, and imagine that going down into the earth and just mixing with elements of the earth. So in that way, relax each part of your body. I mean, you can spend a long time doing this, but we don't have so much time now, so maybe just take it 1 minute and scan through your body. Bring your attention first to the crown of your head. As you exhale, imagine it becomes very relaxed. As you inhale, white light energy comes in. And then bring your attention down to your forehead, the muscles around the eyes, cheeks, jaw. Imagine relaxing them. And then the back of your head, especially just at the base of the skull, and then down to the back of your neck. So just relaxing each part of your body. And then the front of the neck, around the collar, the shoulders. Then the back of your neck, especially where the neck meets the shoulders and the back. Let go of any tension there. And then on down to the shoulder blades and the upper part of the back, especially along the spine. And then the chest, the solar plexus, and the abdomen. So as you relax each part of your body, you should feel your body kind of settle down under your cushion. Feel more kind of soft and stable. And then relax the middle part of your back, the lower part of your back. Abdomen. And the area around the hips, the pelvis, the thighs. And then finally the knees, and the calves, ankles, and on down to the soles of the feet. So now I hope you're comfortable in your meditation posture. So the next step in the meditation is generate a motivation. So here, the motivation means thinking about why am I doing this activity? So each of us, there's many different ways to think about this, but yeah, a basic, and each of us can have different ways, different reasons for meditating. But I think one kind of a general statement we can make is that we want some benefit. We want to achieve some improvement in our lives for ourselves, and then by virtue of that for others, our family and friends. So of course we can fill in a lot of details in terms of how we hope to achieve some benefit or what specific things we might want to come about in this life or future lives. But at least just generate the intention that whatever I do in the next hour and a half during this meditation session, this class, or even during this whole workshop, may it all become beneficial for myself and for others, now and in the future. And then if there's some specific obstacle you're facing or problem you're dealing with, you can also generate the intention that by learning how to meditate, it can help me overcome that obstacle or deal with that problem. So just take a minute and think about for yourself what good reason do you have for learning about meditation, dealing with anger, practicing loving kindness. then with that positive motivation, reason. So we'll engage in the main part of the meditation practice now. So first we'll practice just mindfulness, meditation. So I'll give just a very simple, brief instruction how to do. So the simplest object is our breath, watching our breath. And there are different ways to watch the breath. But probably the easiest is we just breathe naturally. Usually whenever we're meditating in this tradition, we just breathe naturally. Right? We're not practicing like pranayama or something. So just breathe naturally and observe your breath. Just watch yourself breathing. Especially watch the process of breathing as you inhale through the nostrils, watch as the air goes in, down through the esophagus, your lungs fill up, your abdomen rises as you inhale, and then as the inhalation gently comes to an end, and exhalation begins, abdomen sinks, and we push air out of the lungs, and back out through the esophagus, through the mouth and nose, and the air. So we just watch the process of breathing. But to do that, we have to generate the intention to do that, right? For anything any voluntary activity we do, we have to first think, I'm going to do this, right? At different levels of conscientiousness. But here we want to be fully conscious of what we're doing. So first we generate the intention, thinking, now I'm going to watch my breath to the best of my ability for the next, let's say, we'll try 10 minutes. But we have to be realistic, right? We're going to be distracted. we're going to find at moments we're not watching our breath. We're thinking about every other thing in the world. And sometimes we're surprised how many other things we see ourselves thinking of and how little time we actually can focus on the breath. So just know that from the beginning. So from the beginning we have to be prepared that our mind's going to wander, our attention is going to wander to other things. And we have to have a commitment to letting go of whatever it is our mind is being distracted towards. Our mind is wandering towards it. We're thinking about, what am I going to do for dinner, or who am I going to talk to later, or how am I going to respond to that email I got before, or whatever. So be aware that you'll find yourself thinking of other things, and we want to catch ourselves when our attention is wandered off the breath to think about something else. We want to catch ourselves as quickly as we can, and just think, okay, for this 10 minutes, I'll let everything else go, and take a holiday from every other aspect of your life, and just totally relax and watch the breath, right? So we can deal with all those other things later. Right now, in this 10 minutes, we don't have to. Right? That's our kind of privilege. So we have to give ourselves that privilege, right? So so we have to generate the attention for the next 10 minutes to the best of my ability. I'll keep my attention fully focused on the breath, which means just breathing naturally and trying to be fully aware of the process of breathing. Right? Just being present and observing in the present moment, observing the process of breathing. But then with like 20% of our mind, it's kind of like we're watching our own mind. As we're watching, with 80% of our mind, we're watching our breath. But with 20% of our mind, we watch our own mind and see, am I distracted or am I not distracted? So it's that 20%, it's called vigilance, actually. It's kind of ability. So when we see ourselves starting to think about, what are the children doing outside? Or what am I going to do later? Or why did that person say that to me earlier? Whatever else we're thinking about, when we see our mind wander off to think about those other things, we want to notice it, catch it very quickly, and recognize, oh, my attention is wandering, and let it go, and then bring our focus back to the breath, and just continue watching the breath. So realistically, for most of us, every 3-4 seconds, our mind will start to wander. Right? So we have to, again and again, but don't get frustrated. Just expect that's par for the course. That's just normal. So again and again, catch our wandering mind and just let go of those other objects of our attention, and bring the attention back to the breath. Right? Okay, so that's the basic instruction. So now let's just try to practice like that for 10 minutes. So I think for 10 minutes now, I'll just focus on my breath. And then just watch your breath. relax your attention. Yeah, so that's basic mindfulness meditation. So the fourth step, the posture, the motivation, the main part of the session, we just ended. So then if you were going to end the meditation session there, then you dedicate, make some prayer at the end, think by the force, whatever merit I've created through this activity, then may such and such come about in the future for myself, for others. But since we're continuing till 8, we can do that at the end. We don't have to dedicate now. We'll dedicate it once at the end. Yeah, so that's the meditation part of
Another good thing would be to count.
Yeah, counting that we'll come to tomorrow,
Okay.
step by step. So this is just basic, how to practice mindfulness meditation. So mindfulness meditation means basically it's another way, another way to label it is placement meditation, or shamatha in Sanskrit. So another way to call it is placement meditation because we're just keeping our attention, we're placing our attention on one object and just keeping it there without getting involved in discursive thought and critical analysis and thinking about a lot of things. Like we're not trying to think about anything really. We're just simply choosing an object of meditation, in this case our breath, but there can be many other different objects. We'll experiment with some others later. But in this case, we choose an object of meditation, just the process of breathing, and we try to keep our attention placed there, or focused there, and just observe that object and have a continuous, as much as we can, we want to have a continuous, unbroken stream of awareness, of one object, without our attention wandering off, without that stream of awareness being broken by thinking about or paying attention to other things, right? So every time we catch ourselves thinking about something else, the stream of full awareness of the breath is broken, right? We're not fully aware of the breath anymore, and then we have to catch ourselves, our distracted mind, let go of the object of distraction, and bring our attention back. So the more we do this, the longer we can extend the stream of awareness of, in this case, our breath. But the big benefit, it's helpful to do this kind of meditation to know the benefits, right? To kind of encourage ourselves and spark some enthusiasm, generate enthusiasm for doing it by knowing, well, what are the benefits? And what are the drawbacks of not doing this kind of practice? Well, one of the benefits is, the more we build up our ability to maintain a stream of awareness of the breath, an unbroken stream of awareness of the breath, we can transfer that skill to any other object, any other thing we're doing, any other thing we're trying to pay attention to. So if you're in a conversation with someone, you can be more, because if you practice mindfulness watching the breath, you can also be mindful listening to what someone else is saying, or paying attention to what you want to say. Or if you're cooking, you can be more mindful of cooking. Or if you're out, meditating on other things, like the drawbacks of anger, or how to practice loving kindness. So if we're practicing loving kindness meditation, if our mind is distracted and we're thinking about other things all the time, we're not going to build up a very strong attitude of loving kindness. Whereas if our attention is very focused, then the stronger that becomes. Well, if we're analyzing and thinking about how we have maybe a lot of anxiety, and we're trying to understand the source of our own anxiety, if we have good mindfulness or good mental focus, we can easily go very deep into understanding our own kind of inner workings of our mind. But if we're thinking about other things all the time, then we only our analysis only remains at a very superficial kind of level. It's hard to go very deep into the understanding because our attention is just scattered, right? And the more we practice mindfulness meditation like this, the more we just become, we understand, we see, in our own experience, we see directly like what's going on in our mind more and more. So in all of our daily activities, when we're talking with other people, or we're walking or reading, or, at work or traveling, we become automatically more aware of what's happening in our mind. So instead of, say we're in a bad mood, instead of like not realizing that until we're in a really bad mood, we realize it just as we're, we wake up in the morning and we sort of automatically are more aware of what's going on in the mind. Then we see, oh, I'm feeling like this, right? And then we can start to do something about it. If it's some problematic, like we're in a bad mood or something's worrying us or bothering us, then we become more sensitive to what's going on in the mind, so we can start dealing with different problems in the mind at a more early stage, rather than when it's already kind of become a big problem. Also, we just become more conscientious about, well, what is our state of mind? Just like if we start to go on a diet or exercise or something, we become more conscientious about what we're eating or how physically how we feel. Right? So when we meditate more, whether mindfulness meditation or another kind of analytical meditation, which I'll introduce you to, we become, because it's an activity of the mind, we're watching what's going on in the mind, we become more sensitive and more conscientious about our state of mind in every activity, every moment. So it becomes easier to practice generating positive states of mind, right? Because what we want is happiness, right? We want to have well-being, mental well-being, physical well-being. Meditation is primarily about mental well-being, but if mentally we're happy, then it also helps, our immune system, helps us reduce sickness, helps us be physically more comfortable, more healthy. So if we never pay attention to what's going on with our mind, it's difficult to do much to improve our mental state, our emotional life, right? But if we take time, every day to sit and look what's going on with our mind through practicing meditation, then we become more aware, first of all, of what's going on in our mind, and also we learn different skills to deal with. When I'm feeling anxious, how to relax. When I'm feeling lonely, how to feel more connected with others. How to generate, and what are the positive attitudes like compassion, patience, contentment, loving kindness. What are the positive attitudes that I want to have more of, because I know they make me feel happy, they make me feel satisfied with my life, and how to increase those every day, and how to practice that, just like exercising. If we exercise, we can strengthen our arm muscles and our leg muscles. Like if we practice, contentment, loving kindness, meditation, gratitude, we can strengthen each of those different positive emotions, in different ways, and then that helps our overall well-being, mental well-being. But the very beginning of that is just learning to sit still, right? Because a big problem is just, if we never sit still, then it's hard to ever have any mental focus at all, right? So that's why we start with the posture, learning how to sit in a comfortable posture, relax the body, and just then we can just let go of our body, let our body rest there, and then focus on our mind. So when we're learning to focus our mind, then we start with the easy way, is just focus our attention on one object, right? And then we can work on generating more dynamic, more complex and dynamic different kinds of meditation to deal with different sort of issues, and to generate different positive attitudes. Another big benefit of practicing mindfulness meditation is just to generate this perspective. Oftentimes, when we have different thoughts and emotions arise, there's no space between me, the person, and the thought or the emotion. So it's like we're completely overwhelmed by or completely meshed with any thought or emotion that we have, such that it's like it controls us. Because every thought or emotion, it has a sort of a feeling content that goes with it. Either makes us feel happy or makes us feel sad in a way, makes us feel good or bad or neutral, right? So then, if we don't have if there's no space between us, the person, and the thoughts and feelings we have, it's all just so we're surrounded by them, or we're covered up by them, or kind of just being tumbled around within them. And we don't have much control over what thoughts and emotions arise. And each of those has a feeling content. They make us feel some good and some bad. Then it means we're like on an emotional sort of roller coaster all the time, going up and down with no control. And a feeling of not having any control. We don't know what's going to arise in our mind next, and so how that's going to make us feel. You know, we see one thing, it makes us feel another thing. We hear another thing, it makes us feel a different way. A memory arises, it makes us feel this way, and then a desire for something in the future arises, makes us feel a different way, and it kind of, it can be very disturbing, basically, and not very peaceful. So one way practicing just simple mindfulness meditation helps with is generating this perspective of an observer, of an objective observer. Sort of, it's like we're looking. In this case, we're just focusing on our breath, but with the corner of our mind, vigilance, watching what's going on in our mind. And when it's disturbing, when other thoughts arise, right? In this context, they're a distraction. Right? Every thought that arises is not necessarily a distraction. But when we're focusing on one thing, then the other thing that's pulling our attention away is a distraction. Right? So in this context, when we're just focusing on our breath, very simple, neutral object. And we see these other thoughts arise, and we develop the ability just to let go of those things for now. Then it helps us see that actually, I am not that thought. The thought is not me. Thoughts arise and pass away in my mind, but I'm not any of them. And the same with emotions. Emotions arise and pass away. But it's not that I have to, every thought that arises, I don't have to follow that. I don't have to act on it. I don't have to get caught up and engage with that thought or emotion right now, because I'm something different. All these different events in my mind, they're one thing, but I'm not any of those. I'm something different, and I have ability to make a choice. So we create some space between the different mental events we have, thoughts or emotions, and us, the person. And we give ourselves space to make choices about how we want to, where we want to give our attention. Do I want to give my attention to these thoughts and emotions right now, or do I just want to put those aside and pay attention to something else right now? So in doing that, it's like we learn to kind of be more objective, have a more objective stance or perspective with looking at what's happening in our mind. And two, we learn to have more control, because we can kind of step back and then see, oh, this thought, how does it affect me? When I think about this, how does it affect me? Whereas if I think about it in this way, how does that affect me? And then we give ourselves space to make a choice about how we want to, engage in our thoughts with ourselves and with other people, with different situations, with the world. So that, again, it gives us the ability more to discriminate between thoughts and emotions that we find disturbing, we can learn how to reduce, and those that we find healing or positive, we can increase. So it helps. It's the kind of the first practicing mindfulness meditation. It's like the first step again in getting control over our inner mental sort of life. So one is it gives us ability to direct our attention where we want, and the other is it gives us the ability to have more of the stance of or the position of an objective observer, and then have more of a neutral. Instead of every judgment we make being heavily biased by all of our opinions and habituations from the past, we want to learn to have more of a neutral perspective on everything that's going on, like in our own world and in our life in general. So, like if you're well, for example, because we're talking about anger, I might as well talk about it a little bit more. If we're very upset with someone we know, even a friend or a family member, or they say one thing that we get very upset with, then we can see that colors everything else they do in the next few minutes or next hours or days. It's colored by that being upset at them. So even they do something that we would ordinarily think is just innocent, that might even provoke us further. Or they try to they might realize they upset us and try to do something nice, they give us a gift or say something nice, but even we might read that in terms of, well, you just did this other thing that really upset me, so now you're just doing this, so it doesn't matter. So our mind gets colored by the emotion that we have. So another way mindfulness meditation helps is to again generate this perspective of a more observer, a neutral kind of observer of what's going on in our own mind, and not get so caught up in the biases that different thoughts and judgments and emotions bring to our mind, but learn to recognize our own bias in different situations, and then act in a more kind of a more calm, rational, objective way, right? And more quickly jump out of those kind of, if someone upsets us, be able to forgive more quickly, or more quickly understand, okay, well you said this, I'm reacting this way, so that's why I'm reacting, this other thing you're doing, then I'm reacting because it's colored by that. So we generate a more rational sort of understanding of what's going on, and thereby we can act with more wisdom in different situations, based on the principles that we want to live by in our life, rather than just blindly following our reactive kind of patterns of emotional patterns. Okay, so those are some of the benefits of practicing mindfulness meditation. Also, I mean, it can bring a lot of enjoyment, so much, because all of our life only happens in the present moment, actually. The past is gone, it'll never come again. Even when we all came together here about an hour ago, at 6 o'clock or so, now it's almost 7 o'clock. So, even that, that experience of coming here, that's never going to come again. It's gone now. So whatever enjoyment there was to have in that moment, like maybe the sun was just setting, the sky was orange when we were coming here, or maybe there was, I don't know, some nice sounds, or some nice fresh air, or I don't know, some nice thoughts arising in the mind. All of that is in the past now. It's only accessible through memories, which are very patchy and unclear and kind of hazy for most of us, for most things. And the future hasn't yet come. Right? So life only happens in the present moment, now. But if in the present moment we're distracted, we're thinking about the future or remembering the past, then we also miss the present moment, right? So the very space in which really the most kind of colorful, the most vivid experiences we can have are only in the present moment. And if in the present moment we're distracted, thinking about the past or the future, then we miss that, right? So there's so many things we can enjoy, simple things that we can enjoy in life if we can be more present in the moment. If our attention is more open to and aware of what's going on in the present moment, we can enjoy so much to enjoy, actually. So I hope you got a little bit of sense of that watching your breath. I mean, that can come just watching your breath. I mean, I remember when I was, learning newly how to meditate, and just kind of, I remember, especially the first time I ever meditated, it was in college in like 1992 or 93. And it kind of struck me, like, it was a big kind of eye-opener, like a shock, that I've never sat down and just watched my mind. It's, something, it's kind of shocking. Our mind is probably the most important thing. It's much more important than our body. Much more central, to what we are as a person is what's going on in our mind, our thoughts, our feelings, our opinions, our aspirations, our dreams. But for most of us, I think, for much of our lives, we never sit down and actually look at our mind and pay attention in a very kind of methodic, conscientious, intentional way. Just look at what is going on in my mind, and what's possible. Not only all the problems, okay, we need to deal with, but also what's the potential of my mind? What is it possible for me to become? What's it possible for me to know, to experience, for me to realize, for me to be aware of, for me to experience as a person? It all comes from the mind, right? So there's so much actually. I mean, just sitting and watching the breath also, I mean, it's something we do, from the moment of when? I mean, not the moment of conception, we're not breathing it, we're getting oxygen from our mother's blood at that point. But you could say from the moment of birth, from the time we're delivered, that's when we begin breathing, right? When we come out of our mother's womb, we take our first breath. From that time till now, we're breathing, every, 10 seconds? Definitely a few times every minute, more, right? Every 5, 10, 20 seconds, well, less than 20 for sure. Yeah, probably every 5, 10 seconds we're taking a breath. And that sustains our life. If we stop breathing for a few minutes, this life is over, we're dead. So it's like breath is something. It's also quite amazing. You know? It's just, and how is it that we, breathing, we take from the air oxygen, which then mixes with our blood, which goes all over our body and nourishes all the cells of all the different parts of our body, and enables all the physical, but also the mental function we have. In the brain, our brain takes up like 20% of the oxygen we absorb, something like that. So in another way, breath is something incredibly important, incredibly central to our lives, but again, we never stop and pay attention. So that's just one example of how, if we sit just watching the breath, it can be, even such a simple kind of activity, but it can add so much depth and kind of richness of experience in our life. Just sitting and watching something so simple, and just observing simple things. Then, if we can learn how to, appreciate just observing our breath, then that same skill, how to carefully watch simple things, simple experiences we have, that same skill, then we can shift to so many other things. Like, I like sometimes after the session, I like to go to there's a good juice shop down the way, right next to new Sri, I think it's Sri Sandi Cigar. Not Sri Nidhi Cigar, Sri Shanti Cigar. One on Old Airport Road. There's a very good juice shop on the corner there. So sometimes after the session, I like to go have a juice. But again, like just something like that. I like chiku juice this time of year. Chiku's in season, right? So just having a nice chiku juice, if you're caught up thinking about things in the future, things in the past, all kinds of worries, then you drink the whole juice and you hardly experience how it tastes. But if you can focus on, okay, I'm going to really fully experience drinking this juice. Every sip is so has a nice texture, nice flavor. It's cool. Every sip is so enjoyable. Right? Can be. So learning to focus our attention just for on our breath, then the same skill, we learn to be so much more aware of other things in the present moment, and it can bring much more enjoyment to life. And then, if we have gratitude, for the things we experience in the present moment, it brings us so much happiness, right? And then that happiness, it naturally rubs off on others around us, and becomes like a feedback loop. And they feel happy to be around us, and then it improves all our relationships. So, another benefit. Okay. Do any of you need to stand up or have some water? Yeah, why don't we take a 5-minute break? You can stand up, go to the bathroom if you need, have a drink of water, move around a little bit. Probably not used to sitting cross-legged on the floor for 2 hours straight, so let's take a 5-minute break.